Okay.
Alrighty, welcome everyone to our bridge program. I'm Samantha Vail, the younger member chair and the co-host of the bridge program. Today we're going to be having a presentation from Patrick Williams, a fellow ASCE Dallas board member, and he'll be discussing networking 101. And then after his presentation, we're going to ask him a few questions, and then we'll open up to our panel, and they'll be discussing understanding the office environment. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patrick to get started.
Great, thank you. Patrick Williams, yes, PE, lead AP. I mentioned those certifications as it becomes more pertinent. Networking basics, it's just cover your bases, and anything and everything that you do can absolutely result in strong connections, whether it's professional or personal. So you can see I'm diving right in here with my title page. And then what I serve on the Dallas branch, just for your knowledge, is currently as the treasurer, and then as the Texas section, which is the entire state, as far as the ASCE is concerned, I'm the membership chair. So you want to get more involved, I'm definitely one of the people that you can reach out to. And it's going to be some shameless plugs for joining ASCE, both as a member, if you're not already, and as a leadership position. I work for Urban Engineers, and we have a strong presence here in the Southwest, even though we're headquartered in Philadelphia. That's going to be sprinkled throughout my presentation as well. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you are currently working in a place where it's different than you grew up. So I'm currently the Southwest regional leader, and I'll touch upon that, where that sort of happened overnight. I blinked and I became the leader of our entire regional office. And it didn't happen overnight, but it certainly was through some strong connections and feedback that I got throughout my career. What's in red, I'm not really, it wasn't my intent to read them all, but it's my involvement in a nutshell. Drexel University, no shame if you never heard of it. It's East Coast. It's a very engineering-based college in Philadelphia, and I serve as a very strong role on what's called the Board of Governors. It's the Alumni Association. You can already see where I'm going with this, just connections through networks of groups. The second one is actually a nonprofit organization, again, Philadelphia, that I helped become a co-founder of. It was a young friends group to help historical artifacts and the buildings, including the actual Liberty Bell preservation all throughout Philadelphia. And involved in my niche in the engineering world is aviation design. Part of the Airports Consultants Council, Engineering Committee, ASCE. You will hear a lot from me on ASCE. And then the fun stuff. I'm also an ordained minister and even a personal trainer. Just really anything you do, you'd be surprised. Someone wants to know about it. And it could really give you a connection that you never thought you could have. Without further ado, let me go to the next slide. So this definitely will be more casual. I don't have all the secrets in the world, but what I'm going to be presenting to you is my sort of guided structure as to my career path and the things I've come in contact with. Not only what I've done, but what I wish I did. That's a very important aspect of learning for anyone who's interested. But I'm going to go through the benefits of networking, which might be a little obvious. And I touch on the classmates and your alma mater. There's a tie there that maybe you haven't really engaged in or thought about. Then get into the meat and potatoes, conferences and seminars, when we're back in person, that new normal, and we're shaking hands and we're eating around a round table, around a conference, and you're with strangers. What are some tips to start networking on the actual literal in person? A big theme of mine will be the organizations and events that you're going to encounter, or maybe you should be a part of. And then keeping in contact really wraps it all together. Everything you've just done, keep the fire burning, keep that candle going as far as these relationships that you just established. Over on the right is a reminder to anyone that this is brought to you by ASCE Dallas branch. I mentioned the ASCE Texas section. There's ways to get involved. There's events throughout the year for that as well. But never forget, ASCE, such a large umbrella. American Society of Civil Engineers on the regional side. Let me get this right. Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Mexico is Region 6. then obviously on the national scale and the global scale. So there's really no shortage of how ASCE can plug you in and what a network this really is. So the benefits of networking for anyone, depending on where you are in your career, dare I say you're still a student or just graduating, landing that first job, there's no shortage of what you can do even while you're in school and a student. That's your extracurriculars and anything that can help you land that first job, as I call it. Then you get to the interview table, and then they're asking you what your qualifications are, what your GPA is maybe, and then what really resonates is what you do outside the classroom. And that's the organizations that I'm going to keep touching on. So it's that first job. It's also potential future colleagues. Every person that you interact with, and the stronger the relationship, the better, that's someone you actually could work with on some level. It could actually be a desk mate sooner or later in your future firm. It could be someone in another company that you're working closely with on another project. And it's happened to me, and I will share that with you. It absolutely happens. Texas is a big state, but it's not big enough. You really run into the same people over and over again, surprisingly, especially if you're in a niche industry or in our civil engineering world. The third bullet, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that someone very close to you could be in another firm, and then your two firms don't really have a link, but you two become the link. And all of a sudden you're bringing these two companies together because you know and trust each other, and you know the quality of work that the other one can provide. And then future client, that has absolutely happened to me more than a couple occasions. Rubbing elbows at an event, or actually someone I've just developed a knowledge of, whether it's strictly through social media, never met them in person, that happens too. And I've actually gotten jobs from it, jobs meaning projects for my firm. And land that next job. I didn't look up the statistic, you can do that on your own, but absolutely what the bounce rate for people, everyone has to look out for their own interests as to leaving your own firm and going to your next opportunity. It's kind of a no-brainer that the relationships you have developed over the years can be your in, or at least your knowledge of a great firm that you maybe want to give a try and continue your career with another company. And just plain develop relationships. No agenda, no in the back of your mind, this could help me down the road. Just great people hanging out socially and sharing educational experiences as well, sharing ideas. It can absolutely be and does have a great benefit to networking. All right, I started out with this. I'm from Drexel University in Philadelphia, and here I reside for the past 3.5 years in Texas. Now it's a Philly-based college, but here I am surrounded by, now my computer just kind of flipped out a little bit. Can I pause there? Samantha, are you still seeing my screen? Because I'm not even seeing my own screen.
Yes, I can still see your screen.
Let me see.
Okay, we can fix this in post. All right, I'm on slide 4, even though it's buffering for me. So I'll go and bring my presentation up on my other screen. Shame on me for using these videos. But there's a theme here, keeping in touch. And I landed here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and there are hundreds of Drexel alumni of all the colleges in all the world. So many people land here more than ever. People are coming from all over the country to reside in our great state of Texas. So what you have, think of the university for your bachelor's degree. Maybe you got a master's somewhere else. Think of that network, and it's there waiting for you. I say that with confidence, not even knowing where you graduated from, but there is an alumni base that exists. And maybe your university does a great job in connecting you if you ask the right people. Otherwise, you can absolutely go hunt for yourself. Who is the same university graduate as yourself? And that's just a no-brainer. I'm getting ahead of myself, and it's excitedly so that a great tool is LinkedIn. And you can absolutely use LinkedIn with their search filters and search by your own university. See who else graduated from your university, start filtering down, then by region, and then you see who's in your area and who shared a very similar college experience like yourself. And before you know it, you have a connection that starts on social media and goes from there. That's kind of a teaser to my personal experience with Drexel. Every now and then when I find the free time, not a lot of it, but when I find free time, I go on something like LinkedIn and I use those filter features. And I search for my Drexel Dragons, as we're called. And I search by who's in my DFW Metroplex or who's in the entire state, and they pop up. I go connect, 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 and I just start connecting with them. And then we start messaging, and then we share emails. And then before you know it, I know people that are in the engineering industry, either as a potential client, they work for the city of blank, they work for this company, and the rest is history. So sometimes when I'm quote unquote bored, I can just do this little trick. And my ties with Drexel people, since we're a very engineering focused university, there's some strong engineering people in our Metroplex. Now, getting to when we are in person and we're going to those educational or just plain fun events, one thing that I want to share is that it's not easy being open. For some people, it comes very naturally. For me, I'm sort of always getting the jitters before I have to go and speak to a smaller group of people or a larger group, to the point that I'll share with you that I actually even have some breathing exercises that I actually do, just a very short breathe in through my nose and then a long breathe out through your mouth. You do that a few times and that'll actually calm you. I sort of do that before I ever have to be in a very, well, high stakes social interaction. And sometimes it doesn't sound like it's high stakes. That's my kind of funny term. But when you see the people in a buffet style hover around a table and you want to approach, you came to this networking event to meet some people and there's nothing but strangers around you. So you go to that table, and you just never stop being yourself. You recognize that everyone's there to meet others. That's my first bullet here. They want to talk to you. You're not impeding upon them. Sure, they're very likely 9 times out of 10 already in a conversation, but just politely plant yourself and kind of like double dutch, just kind of jump in there when you can. And very, very 9 times out of 10, they will be opening to you as soon as you arrive. And you would do the same, wouldn't you? So it's really just everyone's there for the same reason, and that shy factor, you can really blast past it, as you're all there for the same reason. Especially if you want to just be yourself and be your social self and talk about the food, talk about, oh, if there's alcohol involved, that's a no-brainer. Just start talking about anything and everything around you. Just be a real human being. You don't have an agenda in mind. And what I had as the second bullet is kind of something that I dance with, is when to pull out the business card to really start the actual connection, like let's get down to business. Sometimes you might not actually see that window open. Sometimes you're just having fun, and that's actually fine. And you might want to let this potential client, dare I say, high up in the organization, let them go without you ever giving the business card. If you didn't see that window, it's okay. Nowadays, more than ever, you can find him or her, and it's just the way it goes, because people always know when you're being genuine, and sometimes you can really stop a good time, good conversation by that business card making an appearance. You got to time it right. And I don't have the secret right now, except for what I'm saying is that look for that, and look to just be a human one-on-one interaction more than anything. So that's sort of my personal experience tip on the third bullet here, that I love talking nonsense about the food. If it's good, great. If it's bad, make fun of it and just make people laugh. Be in a similar social situation as you would in your normal life. Just because people might have a suit or tie on doesn't mean it's any different than just some party you're at. And then splice in what you do. They will ask you 9 times out of 10 again, but then have your elevator pitch. Have your elevator pitch that does not take too long as to what you do, your position, your firm, of course, and maybe something that you're most passionate about that you'd love to talk about if they ask you for a follow-up. So just work on your elevator pitch when you're in these rooms. I guess I started by making the joke of high stakes. It's really just my heart starts pounding, and it's really good to have something prepared in your brain in advance. Now, the organizations, this is, in my experience, I go to a lot of conferences, especially traveling, some in California, some on the East Coast, but I never have made stronger relationships than when I'm with my outside the industry organizations and events that I attend. If it's playing correctly on the screen, I can't see it, but the Future Cities is one of the great examples that ASCE Dallas branch takes huge pride in, and that's helping develop STEM, developing passion in STEM for our youth in our area. They always have this competition, very fun. You could be a judge, you can just be there to help facilitate, and you can go all the way to be sort of a mentor and be directly involved. But it's absolutely the future of our industry. And anyone who gives up their Saturday to be at an event like this, I mean, that's just someone who has passion and who's actually a stand-up person. So you want to know those people. And chances are, yes, they're in the engineering industry. So you rub elbows when you're getting that tasty cake lunch that they give you or whatever it is, and you're just hanging out on those break times. It can absolutely be beneficial to get to know these people, how great and strong it is on a social and genuine level when you're at these events. And I have a lot of experience. I jump on the opportunities to do community cleanup events. You really get to know people on a really deep level, that as well. So outside the 9-to-5 workday, outside the actual literal conferences, these sort of organizations and involvement are what really spark the strong relationships to potential clients, partners, and future colleagues that you want to work with. Now, with the keeping in contact, I actually have my tip up on the screen. That's the LinkedIn part that some people are like, wow, I didn't know LinkedIn did that. And LinkedIn's kind of my opinion. It's not a commercial for LinkedIn. I'm getting no residuals for it, but it's kind of the best we got. That's the more professional of the social media world. That's right before email. And there's just a little link at the top that you can see that you can actually download your data and connections, and it can be exported into an Excel spreadsheet. And I do that every now and then. If I'm going to an area, a geographic area, and I want to see who's going to be there, who's from there, and I can really sort, and you can filter your spreadsheet once you have it, and you can play with it. And you can remind yourself of who you have as a connection, and then say, I haven't talked to that person in a long time. Let me go hunt them down. And one of my things that I want to say, so the keeping in contact slide. Yes, it's all about follow-up. So actually, once you meet someone, maybe you didn't get to transfer that business card, like I mentioned. LinkedIn's there waiting. I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10 again, but a lot of times they're on LinkedIn, especially if they're high up in their organization. Go and find them. Don't wait on it, and do it as soon as you can. Hopefully you got their information. Now, my second bullet is my favorite in the entire presentation here, and that is, well, forwarding opportunities is my first point, where you met someone and you said, all right, great meeting you, see you later. And then you have these RFPs, RFQs for the actual opportunities or projects coming around, and you forward it along because you remember that there's synergy, there's potential synergy between your two firms. Maybe you never work together, but you're just throwing it out there. You'd be surprised. I have some personal success with this. It's they don't know my firm from Adam, but they now know me, and they found out that I do a service that they have a gap in their team for. It's absolutely happened, and it's happened recently. But my favorite is the share your accomplishments. Everyone on this little presentation here, audience, will definitely have awards throughout your career. You'll have designations and attaboys, attagirls throughout your life. So just forward that along, especially if it's just a random email and you receive their email, or share the LinkedIn messaging link, whatever it takes. They will respond. I mean, they want to do the same for you someday. So also congratulate others. It's kind of funny that the LinkedIn, again, a commercial for LinkedIn, the LinkedIn standard of, oh, happy anniversary for your work anniversary, happy this, great talk that it defaults to. Sometimes that goes a long way, and it really sparks up the relationship that maybe has lagged for a number of years. I do it all the time, and I kind of smile each time. It's like the generic congrats on your work anniversary, but it's still an effort. It's still an effort to keep in contact, and it works. So my personal experience here, I want to go back to ASCE as the shameless plug, because I climbed the ladder on the East Coast with the young member organization that was there, helping with some charity events and feeding the homeless there, and what we called ourselves the Soup Squad, which was developing and preparing soups for the elderly in the low-income areas who could not come out of their homes. And you're not going to really get closer to anyone when you're mixing up soup together in a kitchen and just having a good time and doing it for a great cause. So with ASCE, more recently, I've definitely gone to the various conferences throughout the year, and when I link up with someone who I know is with ASCE, one has recently, in the past 8 months, developed into a proposal win where they were the prime firm and they asked my firm to be a subconsultant, and together we won. I never heard of their firm and vice versa, but we linked up, literally eating lunch at a conference and just started talking, and the rest came to fruition. So we won a little job in the city of Amarillo, if you're interested. And again, with the personal experience with keeping in contact is just how I am a transplant from the East Coast. That's a more common theme than ever. And I really just fell into a great hit the ground running situation of colleagues that I just met overnight. I found an opportunity with ASCE Dallas branch. And then all of a sudden it's the one organization that I could hit the ground running because I knew about it. And I started taking leadership roles, but I started by just going to the great monthly luncheons with literally over 200 people every month with some great educational speakers. So it's just a no-brainer for one of the best things is when you're at those lunch tables, just opening up to the person next to you, make fun of the stale bread, whatever you got to do just to get the ball rolling, but always be yourself and they will react. Everyone's there for the same reason. Never forget that. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm trying to tell you that it's not just advice, it's actual personal experience that has worked for me and has developed into projects. I am at the cusp of making an offer letter to a fellow colleague to join my firm, who I met through the ASCE circuit, and absolutely had the partnerships that I'm talking about with two firms, my firm and another, strictly by knowing one person that I shared maybe a beer with at a local event. So that is fast on purpose so that we can leave it up to potential questions. But that's all from me.
Awesome. Seems like you have networking down.
Right.
I learned a lot, actually. So now I guess we'll open it up to any questions. If anyone has questions, you can type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. I know I have a few questions, but I'll wait and see if anyone. I see Tyler's typing.
Okay. How did you network to get your current job again?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I'm one of those rare people that I'm almost an urban engineer's lifer, where it was almost my first job out of college.
Oh.
And it was a colleague that I graduated with, so a close friend. We were on our senior design project and everything. And then he had a friend who I never met. His name was Andrew. To this day, I don't know who this person is. And Andrew had the connection to my firm. So see the network already. I knew my friend Jason. Jason knew Andrew. I didn't know Andrew from a hole in the wall. And I got the job through this this connection. So it's definitely those strong on a friendship level connections. And that was a connection in my college.
Awesome. So one of my questions before listening to your presentation was, how do you avoid coming off as disingenuous when you're networking? But I think you made good points of being yourself and be authentic. But I guess my second follow-up question to that would be, how do you approach someone if you don't necessarily know what to say? Yeah.
It's really tricky. I mean, make no mistake that they are a stranger in the world, and but you are there for the same reason. You're all there for whatever the event is circled around. You could have that in your back pocket as to just talk about what you're all experiencing, or I'm more of a jokester, but I understand not everybody has the dad jokes that I have. So just approaching someone with those icebreakers, it's a tough one. But I like to do a little observational, hey, did you notice this? Or, oh, hey, like your tie. Literally, I've said that. Anything that kind of works. So it's a vague answer, I know, but let me talk about what you didn't ask. Is a hindrance sometimes is when you're with a friend or a colleague of your own company. That sounds like it could really help you, but sometimes I want you to avoid the pitfall of just hanging around with the people you already know. So it's related to your question. It can really happen. And it just kind of break off if you can, or together you can do it, but don't just talk to the people you already know. Mm-hmm. Make it a goal to approach someone. Those circular tables, if there's room, splice yourself in with your cocktail wiener and your champagne drink, whatever it is, and just they will be welcoming.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's one thing I struggle with the most is sometimes I want to talk to someone, but I really cannot think of what to say to them. I just want to say hi, but I don't want it to be awkward and I don't really know what to say to them. So But
Well,
I think you
it's
made a comment about talking about the food is always a go-to if you have nothing to say.
the number one thing out of my mouth. Now that I mention it, here's the tip. Hey, do you mind if I join you? It's an obvious thing that'll be the first words out of your mouth, and it gives them an opportunity to, well, they're never going to say no, Samantha. So
Yeah.
you're in there.
And it kind of gives them the floor to now say something to you.
100%.
You don't have to pick guys. Okay, any other questions?
I would like to add, sometimes we kind of underestimate how big our network is already. Like I could go to any one of the board and ask them for help for something. And or like I think we underestimate like how much our family is, how like I didn't know my cousin worked at this like Boeing, for example, and I could ask them, or my cousin's wife to ask them or something like that. I think
Oh, yeah.
we underestimate that a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's all
that's
I
a good
want to
point.
add. Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, just be cognizant of who's out there. And again, not with any devious agenda of, oh, I'm going to benefit myself. It's just remind yourself. Yeah, the word network is so sort of overused, but really picture it like stemming off into all the people you know to not just be helped, but help them as well. It goes both ways.
Okay, so another question I have is, how do you keep in touch? I know you said you mentioned using LinkedIn and whatnot. How do you approach the conversation? I guess, do you message them? Is it a simple like of their posts? What do you?
Yes, but then you get into the real meat of it with email. But yeah, the LinkedIn is kind of keeping the candle burning. But yeah, when it's time for email, especially if you have a nice attachment, again, I want to say, like, if you have an accomplishment that you have and it's all presented by your company or something, just forward that along, and they will congratulate you, and you can really just kind of go off into a conversation. Hey, how have you been? And if you had something recently, maybe you moved. These people could react to these things that are important to you in your life, and that's where an email, you know, old school would be picking up the phone, right? But I'm not even that person. So yeah, email is that next level of you can actually have some paragraphs of a discussion, other than LinkedIn with a message or two or a sort of like of their posts. But it goes a long way. They're going to keep seeing your name and they're going to remember you.
Okay. Let me see. So I know you mentioned being nervous and you breathe to help calm yourself down. I wanted to add something. I saw it somewhere. I don't know how true it is, but being nervous and being excited, I think, are very similar emotions. And there's like a trick to switch the two. You're supposed to tell yourself you're excited. If you're really nervous, you have to tell yourself, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And it's supposed to work. You're supposed to switch from being anxious and nervous to more energized and excited. I don't know if anyone's ever tried that, but I know it's something I've been seeing go around.
I'm going to. I love it. It's sort of similar to the smile and then you'll fool your brain into thinking you're happy sort of thing.
Okay.
It's just kind of trigger yourself. It's kind of funny. That's a cool trick that I'll try.
Yeah. Yeah, let me know if it works. I'll try it too next time I'm nervous. And another question I have is, what are your experiences with networking within ASCE? I know I'm fairly new within ASCE. I feel like I've networked with the board and whatnot, but at the meetings, I don't know that I necessarily network as much as I should, or I haven't really attended any of the events the ASCE puts on.
Yeah, when it comes to the leadership positions and the actual roles that you're playing, starting at that level, maybe it's something I'd like to call accidental networking. You're kind of doing it without even knowing. What you're doing is you're in a room with fellow leaders and you're just showing everybody how you're taking charge in the position that you have, or you're volunteering and it's very obvious, and vice versa. Everyone in the room, you're not calling it networking, but you're absolutely developing some of the strongest people in your network that you can think of by doing the job you signed up to do. And then, yeah, that's just happening naturally, and it goes a long way. And then as we even get out of our positions and it's X number of years into the future, they will remember that and you will remember that, and you'll want to partner together because you saw the passion and you saw the actual hard work and the success. So that's on the involvement standpoint. And then I mentioned I had success not only with rubbing elbows at our Dallas branch monthly meetings, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, that they're a great opportunity for networking. But also on the Texas section level, CECon and many other conferences, but the CECon gathering for lunch. Hey, do you mind if I join you on the bigger circular table because we're all about to have lunch? That's where the real casual conversation happens. As long as you calm yourself, tell yourself you're excited, be genuine, actually care about people's responses as to where you're from, who do you work with, all that. And that has developed into an actual contract between myself and another firm where we went in together. And it all started while sharing that rubber chicken lunch at a CECon.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good point, the being genuine. Because I've heard people comment, like people higher up within the companies comment that they can tell and they don't like it when people come up to them when they have an agenda and they're kind of forcing something.
Yeah, or oh yeah.
To know.
And how I've seen it with my own eyes. Just someone actually starts talking to someone they didn't know, and then they quickly find out that there is no connection. There is no actual thing. They don't do the same thing together. So it's not worth their time. And they actually abruptly stop talking with this person because they realize that, what I do doesn't even link with what you do. So I'll see you later. I've seen it in front of my eyes. So remember, don't be rude, actually care about finishing the conversation that you might start. And, we're all people just trying to have a little fun outside of work and learn about each other.
Okay. Ed, do you want to ask any of the questions that Nick had listed?
Oh, sure. Well, actually, one of them was lines up with something that I like. So I just want to know if you've read any kind of self-improvement or skills books that you might recommend to others. I know that I'm kind of a big reader, so I kind of like.
I'm starting a healthy addiction to Audible, so I actually have up my library here. And even though I haven't recently read anything with the word networking in it, leadership books definitely touch on this in every which way. So I recommend John C. Maxwell. He's actually an ex-pastor, and I think from the great state of Texas. And he has, well, I have two in my network in my library here, but the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is a great one. It's one of my favorites. And 5 Levels of Leadership is another one, both from that same author. And another great author is Tom Peters. And he has The Excellence Dividend, which I finished last year. So he definitely touches on, well, a broader scale of all that it is to be a leader. But these networking tips, where if you do them enough, they're actually just common sense of just, again, being genuine and just having a good time sometimes, that you're actually showing leadership by just being a great person and linking up with these other professionals so that you can help each other. It's not just helping you, it's helping each other. And that's a common theme with being a leader as well.
Perfect.
So does anyone else have any other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you, Patrick, for your presentation. I think we're going to move on to the second portion of our meeting, understanding the office environment. And so we have our panelists, which would be Chris Hoff, Patrick Williams, and I believe that is it.
I'm also Jonathan.
And Jonathan now, yes, all right.
Was voluntold.
I'll volunteer on the spot.
Volunteer, that should be you. So if you guys can start off by just introducing yourself, the size of your company, and yeah, I think that's all. Yeah. We'll start with Chris.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Hey, I'm Chris Hoff. I'm at Jacobs, so I work with Ed and Samantha and probably a variety of other folks y'all have seen on these ASCE programs. I'm what's called the Transportation Group Lead for North Texas and Oklahoma. So that's Dallas and Fort Worth and Oklahoma City. We're about 100 people, right at 100 people for those 3 offices. And so that's a lot of transportation staff. That's just transportation. That doesn't count all of our other architects and other professionals. So several hundred in the Metroplex for sure, but it's a big group that I get to I'm kind of the people side of our management. So we have business management where we look at all of our projects and our, how those projects are doing from a schedule and dollars and all of that standpoint. But then I'm kind of the soft side of that. I'm a hiring manager. I'm in charge of development and making sure that our staff have the tools that they need and that our younger staff are engaged and getting assigned to projects that are meaningful for their career development. So next week, interestingly, I will hit my 30-year point of being out of school. So I'm probably well older than everybody on this call. But at this point in my career, the good news is this is what I love to do. I have kind of felt like I've peaked my engineering knowledge, and now I just enjoy trying to get a group of skilled people and empower them to do great things. And so that's my role.
Awesome. Thank you. Jonathan, introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. My name is Jonathan Brower, and I'm a structural engineer for a company called LA Feast Partners. And our office is in Uptown Dallas. And we have about 80 engineers here in our Dallas office. And we also have an office in Boston, Massachusetts, where there's about 15 employees. And then we just started an Austin office that has 2 engineers down there right now. So overall, it's about 100 within the whole company.
Nice. And Patrick.
If you're sick of this voice already, I don't know, but yes, I work for Urban Engineers, not Urban Engineering, not Urban Design Group. So it's a pretty common name, but Urban Engineers. And yes, we have a strong presence for decades in Texas, although we're about to only be 10 people here. So nationwide, we are about 475 employees. So we're right in that sweet spot of call us mid-level size. I'm the Southwest regional leader, so we're growing here, and we're in Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. We got some projects almost in all those states. So we're a civil engineering firm. Our elevator pitch is we do everything but architecture. And yes, we are half and half, pretty much designers on every level of design, mainly transportation, and half of our firm is also construction management related.
Great. Okay, so I guess we'll start off with first questions. What are some differences between the office environment in your offices? I guess small, medium, and larger offices. And if you've worked in a bigger office in the past or smaller office in the past, what differences do you notice? I guess I asked that because I spoke to my manager earlier today, and he was working for Jesus was working for a smaller firm before joining Jacobs, and he was mentioning how different the office environment is with the larger firm versus the smaller firm. The smaller firm had fewer people. You knew all of your coworkers pretty well. You share computers because you didn't have as much resources as he did in larger offices. I don't know if you guys have similar experiences or.
I had an interesting experience with my office because when I first got hired back in 2012, we had around 45 or so engineers in the Dallas office. So it was, I guess, relatively small. And everyone definitely knew everyone, but not, like I said, now we're about 80. And so I know everyone's name in there, but I don't think I've had an in-depth conversation with every single person in the office. And then we're now getting to the point where like we had an intern 2 summers ago, and then someone mentions that intern. I'm like, wow, I have no idea who you're talking about. Like, I don't remember that person at all. And so that has been kind of eye-opening to me to be like, wow, there's a lot of people here, and sometimes it's tough to like interact with all of them and have a meaningful conversation with all of them. So I'm trying to like work through, how to get to know these people, because I think I'm definitely better than some people in my office. There's some people in my office who literally have never met or don't even know someone who is working there, which is kind of rough. So a lot of, engineers sometimes can clam up and keep to themselves. So I like to try and get to know everyone. But it is kind of interesting going through, I guess, a slight growing pain of going from a smaller company to a slightly bigger company where it's tough to know everyone.
Yeah, I started at a firm. So the first 7 years of my career, I worked at a firm that had about 30 people. And when I started, I thought that was a good strategy because that was the right number of staff where I could get help from a variety of folks, but you absolutely knew everybody. You knew where everybody graduated from college. You knew if they had kids or not, if they had pets. 30 people is a sweet spot for knowing all those things. But I didn't have we didn't have an accounting department, or we didn't have a mail room, or we didn't have we didn't have a sales team. Everybody was all of those things, and I had to deliver my own packages to the FedEx, place on time so it would get sent to the client the next morning, and I had to type out my own, letters for submittal, and so I think that was a good learning experience. But and I really did like the people part of it because you knew everybody, like I said, and it felt like a family. When you had a company picnic, pretty much everybody was there. Now, company picnics, at a firm with 7, 8, 900 people in the metroplex. I don't know most of the people at the company picnic, and it's a little intimidating, but for the same, the same reasons that some of those, I wish I had an accounting group or a sales group or project controls. That's what I do like about a big company is even if I don't know those people, I can know them, right? You just have to network to Patrick's points. And so sometimes knowing somebody in each of these groups is absolutely a way to expand things, and it has its own pros as well. So there's no right answer for small or big firm, but I've enjoyed both of them.
Yeah, some differences. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the questions that Nick had written out. As an employer, what are the most important expectations you may have for employees within your office culture? Can you explain why it is that those expectations directly relate to your desired office culture? It's a loaded question. So I guess what are your expectations for your office culture? What are you hoping the office culture would be like?
I can start with that one if nobody else is gonna grab that one. But so be respectful. I mean, that's above all else. You need to, and really, it's not just respectful. It's be honest, be ethical. All of those human qualities that you probably should need to have at any job you're at. I expect that of everybody, and that's just part of being a human. It's not just a Jacobs thing or anything. It's treat everybody the same way, and you're going to meet different folks from different agencies, clients, sub-consultants, you name it, and then different people with your own staff. If you're not treating everybody the same, I believe that karma will come get you. And so if you're not talking to the mailroom person or the accounting person or the new EIT hire that is just in, if you don't treat everybody the same, it's gonna come back to haunt you. And so if you just do it the same for everybody, people notice that, I think. And so that's the way I've tried to operate, and that way I have no qualms about who am I fixing to meet, because I have no skeletons in the closet, hopefully. And but if you just kind of keep that strategy, that'll pay dividends. And I think that works into our Jacobs, goals of ethics and inclusion and treating everybody the right way. So the same things that I think are important, it happens to work out very well with our Jacobs corporate structure as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, when I start thinking about the word culture or office culture, our firm definitely doesn't portray that to a new hire, really. It's nothing in black and white for sure. It's just maybe just that loosely defined expectations, a lot of what Chris said, of course, and it comes down to professionalism. Mm-hmm. Then I get my own little personal things that I want. I don't want to see men with open-toed shoes, stuff like that, where it's the professionalism, because Chris even hinted to it. It's just anyone who you're trying to do business with could actually come through your halls in the new normal. And we'd had that happening a lot, actually. So looking unkempt and just absolutely blasting something on your computer or radio, these no-brainer things might not be no-brainer depending on who you're talking about. So it's absolute professionalism. I've seen the cluttered desks. Now I'm getting into my pet peeves, right? But it's all tied to just representing a professional atmosphere for the firm. So we don't lay this out for anyone. We don't really necessitate a talking to every now and then. but every now and then we do need to remind people to ask questions with respect, instead of those heated arguments that can happen with an audience of a whole office sometimes, people getting into an argument. So let's cut that,
Yeah. I don't know if you want to chime in, Jonathan, or move to the next question.
I'll take the next question. How about that?
Okay.
Deal.
I'm just reading Nick's questions, so if they don't make sense, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm reading them wrong. Do you think that there is a need for workplace traditions, and do you think that there is a room for organized goofing around?
I think workplace traditions are great. I mean, I know I'll use my company as an example. We didn't get to this last summer, but in the past, what we've done is every summer at the end of the intern's stay in our office, we would have a big company-wide bowling party. And so that was a big thank you to the interns, and also kind of a welcome to the new hires, the full-time new hires that might have started that summer or starting at the end of the summer. And so I think that built up a lot of camaraderie, and we had some, work-sponsored volleyball teams. So I guess you can call that. I'm an Aggie, so if we do anything twice, it's a tradition. So we've had a couple of volleyball teams, so that's a tradition in my mind. And even like during this whole work from home situation, I've tried to set up kind of like a standing every other Friday morning coffee and catch up time is what I call it. And it's with just some of the new hires that I work with, or that are that I came from A&M, or that I've helped recruit. And so that's kind of my little tradition, just to try and stay in touch with people during this remote time. And I think it does help when you just have kind of a set time or a set event or a set schedule that's not for work. It's just, hey, let's just talk, even if it's 5 minutes. Let's get to know each other a little bit, or just if we don't want to talk today, we don't have to, but it's available next week. I think that definitely helps.
We have a question here in the chat. Says, I'm an ASCE member networking for my son who has a master's in business degree. Are there firms where he can go for an interview in the North Texas area?
So I guess, is it a undergraduate engineering degree and then a
Masters of Business.
master's in business? MBA?
Possibly. Or the father's an engineer and his son is in business. Not sure.
Like they need an office manager maybe, or someone.
Possibly. I don't know, Richard, if you're able to unmute yourself and clarify or type.
I mean, from just the resources that ASCE has available, we do have job postings on our branch website. The Texas section has even more job postings available. So that's resources you can use within ASCE.
Good answer.
Yeah. Okay, so next question. What are some of the pitfalls that you see young professionals have when conducting themselves within the work environment? I know some interns, I used to see them watching movies. We have an open desk layout, and they would just sit there watching movies in front of everyone. So I think that's the pitfall.
I think sometimes, Samantha, it's things like that are kind of easy to spot, and hopefully they're few and far between. I think one of the more subtle ones is, I think a pitfall is when somebody's too quiet and they don't ask any questions.
Wow, yeah.
It takes some coworkers and management to engage them, and maybe they'll open up. Maybe that's just their personality is that way. But sometimes you wonder if they're being too quiet, if they're if they don't like their job, or they have questions and they don't know what they're doing. And so pitfalls might be behavior, and those tend to be pretty outward, but I would look at the more inward pitfalls, which are simply a lack of try to work on those, make sure that they're comfortable and they know, they have the information they need, and are getting questions answered, and that way they're developing and getting work done as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know sometimes I'm afraid to ask questions in meetings. I kind of save them to ask one specific person. So I can relate to.
And I've also noticed, it's kind of you have to kind of figure this out to a certain degree, but there's a fine line between like digging for the answer and researching and trying to teach yourself, and also spinning your wheels too long.
Yes.
If you spend 2 days trying to figure out a detail or figuring out a code reference, okay, maybe you've tried as hard as you can and you're digging, but you just need someone to help point you in the right direction. So figuring out like how much time do I really waste on this if I'm learning?
That's a great point. And I think that, the expectation I would have is that somebody spends whatever time they think is appropriate to try to find out an answer, but then raise your hand. And that's, so I'll never be afraid to answer their question. But after a while, you may notice that they're not doing their fair share of the research before they ask the question. But yeah, that spinning wheels part is the variable that's important. I think if you spun your wheels for a week trying to figure something out and you're never going to get there. We needed to have asked that question before.
Yeah, good points.
I would say, Samantha, hey, one other thing real quick is, I think another pitfall is that everybody, if you ask them what they want to do a year or two from now, is they want to be a project manager. Okay, we know that everybody wants to be a project manager, but don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And you need to have some experience with this task and that task and that task. And because part of being a project manager is having experience in a variety of things. And so I think sometimes people look past literally just getting involved in a variety of tasks where they're really more focused on the title and I want to be that, instead of, hey, if there's a drainage task here that's I can get involved in, I want to help with that. I don't understand signing and striping. Let me get involved with that. I'm not a structural engineer, but I'm curious why this happens or something. So I would say focus less on quick title issues and focus on just learning as much as you can, and things will happen organically.
I agree. Yeah. And I've heard some stories where people take on the position as a PM, but they didn't have the experience to back it up and they end up failing at that position.
It's no fun trying to manage if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Okay. And so the last question I have here is, what are your personal and corporate policies on tattoos, piercing, or even hair colors within the workplace? Do you think there is still a stigma of tattoos being seen as unprofessional?
More acceptable than ever. I guess a lot might agree. I'm very old-fashioned. I think I'm a 60-year-old man in this body, but there's really been this trend that a lot of these things you just listed off are not a big deal. I wouldn't say it bothers me, but I think it can still be done mixed in with the right amount of what I said earlier, professionalism. So yeah, these are things that make you unique in these days, but as long as you conduct yourself and your overall appearance is as best as it could be to represent the firm, it's a tricky thing. You just make sure that you're not presenting ill on the company.
Yeah, maybe avoid the face tattoos and neck tattoos.
Yeah,
if we had to have a limitation.
The Mike Tyson look probably won't work.
Yeah.
No, I think I was talking to my wife about this subject the other day, and so she works at a hospital, and their policy used to be pretty strict. If you had a visible tattoo, you had to cover it up with some sort of clothing because they didn't think it was sensitive to the wide variety of family that they see in the hospital. They've relaxed that policy now, where it's based on the content of the tattoo, and so as long as that tattoo doesn't have anything offensive, it's not as big a deal. And so I agree. I think it's softened somewhat. And if you've got a cuss word on your wrist and everybody can see it, I think you need to think about that before you do that. But if it's a bicycle or something, that's not offensive. So I think it's a little more open. Probably good to think about. There are some people that are old-fashioned and maybe are having a harder time accepting that, but I think the world has shifted in the last 10, 20 years to that effect. As far as piercings go, I mean, neither of these words show up in our policies. I went back and looked kind of to think about this question, and the word piercing and the word tattoo doesn't show up in the policy. It's all about judgment and professionalism and, and being appropriate for your environment. If you're going to go stand in front of city council and you've got a huge piercing, people are going to subconsciously look at your piercing and not listening to what you're saying. So, just think about that from a professionalism standpoint, and don't do yourself a disservice by having your appearance detract from your message. And hopefully, if people listen to you as a person, there's no distraction, you should be fine. And if you have blue hair and you're incredibly good at what you do, I think you're being good at what you do will end up being, sort itself out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think times are definitely changing. I know I mentioned the face tattoo earlier, but I remember that there's a news host who has, I think she's Native American, and so she has like a face tattoo, but it's cultural. So I think times are changing. People are more accepting of different things, and yeah. Well, I guess it's about time to end our meeting. I appreciate everyone for joining, and Chris and Jonathan and Patrick for being on our panel, and Patrick for putting that awesome presentation together. We should have this uploaded on YouTube for those who weren't able to join us. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Glad to help.
Organizing.
Bye.
Yeah. Alrighty, bye everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much.